Tears of the Kingdom is one of the most accessible Zelda games in the entire canon, but there's so much going on in the latest trip to Hyrule that it's easy to miss a lot of the basics. Whether it's an obscure menu option that makes your life a little bit easier, or an entire area full of loot that you just marched on past the first time, there's always something about big open-world games that you wish you'd figured out earlier. Well, we can't claim to know everything about Tears of the Kingdom just yet because there's just so much of it, and it's full of weird systems that interact in strange and wonderful ways. But here are a few things we wish we'd have known earlier, that maybe you haven't figured out yet. Because sharing is caring, and we're just nice like that. Enjoy. Of all of Link's new powers, Rewind seems to be the most underused out in the open world. I mean, maybe that's because its most obvious uses are in shrines and temples, where it's clear that the only way to advance is to make a water wheel go backwards or something. But what's incredible about Rewind is that it works anywhere at any time. The game is constantly tracking the movement of physics objects in the world, which is really impressive given how ancient the Switch hardware is now. Did you know, for example, that you can rewind those big chunks of rock that fall from the sky? This can be very useful for gaining a bit of height while you're out in the open. Yeah, of course you knew that already, but Rewind is far more useful than that. The system even records an object's movement when you're waving it around with Ultra Hand. Pick it up, spin it, drop it, whatever you do, that motion can be played back. And so this can be used in all manner of ways. If you don't quite have the stamina to climb a rock face, for example, you can turn a nearby log into a makeshift elevator. Simply record it going up and down, and press rewind while you're standing on it. And it works. You can make moving platforms that cross chasms without going to the bother of stitching a load of planks together. Amazing. It also works for dealing damage. If you MacGyver a turnstile out of some cart parts and get it spinning in the air, this is great for slowing enemies down and slapping them around at the same time. Also, here's a tip. Emitter objects can be picked up while they're, emitting. So that flame emitter you've just activated on the ground, why not use it as a magic floating flamethrower, send it spinning in the air, and use Rewind to keep it airborne while you make an escape? I mean, there's probably better uses for this, but it just goes to show that it's an incredible system. The combination of Ultra Hand and Rewind is, in the hands of a clever player, a very powerful tool. If only we knew one. Look, maybe they mentioned it in the tutorial, maybe they didn't, but we know a bunch of people missed that you can unfuse things from your weapons. Did you accidentally fuse a minecart to your spear and now you feel stupid? No sweat! Hit the plus button to go to the items menu, that's the proper inventory menu, not the quick menu that you get from the D-pad, highlight the offending abomination in the weapons tab, then select destroy fused material. Now this does of course destroy the fused material, so don't do it unless you're sure. But did you know that you can unfuse weapons without losing any of the constituent parts? Well, you can. If you head over to Tari Town, which is far to the northeast of Lookout Landing, you can find a Goron child there called Pelison, who will happily break apart any fused weapons for the reasonable sum of 20 rupees. You can't miss him, he's wearing a hard hat. And he's, running a bit of a racket. But still, if you got the cash and you can't bear to destroy your last flame emitter, seek him out. In most fantasy RPGs, water wells are just there to add a bit of realism, a bit of authenticity. A bit of street furniture to answer annoying questions that people on the internet might ask, like, how do these people even hydrate? Not so in Tears of the Kingdom. You can go down any well and explore the damp cave that it sits atop. And it is worth doing, because there's often some pretty neat stuff down there. Chests, gemstones, and often sticky lizards which are extremely useful for crafting elixirs. Quite a few of them are also tied to quests too, so it's always worth having a gander if you spot one. One complaint that Tears of the Kingdom has in common with its predecessor is that many players feel a bit directionless. So I've done the tutorial, I've landed in Hyrule, but what now, they ask? Well, it's honestly very simple, guys. Just head to the yellow marker. I know, it seems obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people have an aversion to following the main quest. And here's the crucial thing. Even though Tears of the Kingdom is an open world game, it's not Skyrim. You really do need to keep following the thread, at least until you get to the Rito village. Otherwise, you will miss a number of crucial things. So don't delay. Even though it's so tempting to run off and get stuck into all the shrines that you can see glowing on the horizon, forget about them for the moment and head to your first yellow marker at Lookout Landing. Here you'll meet Purah and start yourself on the quest that not only unlocks the essential Skyview Towers, but it also regains your glider from the first game, which is just as invaluable in Tears of the Kingdom as it always was. Also, just keep in mind, the NPCs will generally give you plenty of hints as to the optimal way of doing things, so just keep your ears open. For example, right at the start of your journey, Purah tells you to go northwest to Rito Village. At this point, the game really opens up, and you can run off to your heart's content from here on out. But if you follow her advice, you'll end up triggering a number of extremely worthwhile side quests, and you'll also bump into a familiar face along the road. By the time you've so much as completed the tutorial, you should already have a good handful of Korok seeds in your pocket. Which is kind of disgusting, as you'll know if you've played the first game. The seeds are actually Korok poop. Yeah, it's pretty gross. But if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, or if you played it so long ago that you've forgotten it all because in video game terms it basically came out about 5 billion years ago, you might have forgotten what they're actually for. You also might be wondering, incidentally, how on earth you can expand your weapon or shield slots. Is this ringing a bell now? Yes, once again, you need Korok seeds to expand your inventory, and you achieve this by giving ever-increasing amounts of them to Hestu, the biggest, cuddliest Korok in the game. You'll meet him for the first time cowering from some evil trees on the road to Rito Village. Save him, because, yeah, it's the polite thing to do, and you'll also be able to trade some poop seeds for inventory slots. And then he just leaves you to it, explaining that he's heading east to where there are more people. The problem is that, well, most of the game map is east of where you are. But don't worry, you'll find him hanging around back at Lookout Landing after this encounter, where he will remain until you clear the gloom from the Korok Forest, which you won't be getting on with until much later. But just think, if you hadn't listened to Purah and headed to the Rito Village in the first place, you might never have bumped into him at all. At the start of the game, properly good weapons are like gold dust. You'll probably be swinging a lot of sticks with horns stuck to them, but that will get old fast. Well, right at the start of the game, shortly after you visit Lookout Landing for the first time, you'll be sent up to Hyrule Castle to meet the soldiers who are looking for Princess Zelda. While you're here, keep in mind that all of these remnants of the castle are full of old military gear, including knights' halberds, royal bows, and even some pieces of armor. It's not much, and all of the weapons are decaying because of the gloom, of course, but they're certainly better than the sticks and bits of garbage you find lying around up top on Great Sky Island. With new kinds of peril comes new kinds of damage. Gloom is one of the most annoying hazards in Tears of the Kingdom, and touching it, or being struck by an enemy infested with it, will leave you with a bad case of broken hearts. Gloom tends to fester down in the depths, but gloom-infested enemies can pop up anywhere, even in the sky. Now, there are 3 ways to heal cracked hearts. The easiest but least convenient one is simply to return to the surface. Once you're back up in the open air, the hearts will heal by themselves. But this is hardly ideal when you're mid-spelunk. The second way is to go to a light route. Interacting with a light route or teleporting to one will allow you to mend your hearts without leaving the depths. The last and arguably the best way is to consume a new kind of sunny meal, which is any plate of food cooked with a sundelion plant. These plants are new to Tears of the Kingdom and can generally be found all over the Sky Islands. So whenever you're up in the sky, make sure you harvest as many as you can, because they are crucial for exploring the depths below the surface. Isn't that just poetry? A lot of people might miss this one because in the 5 billion years since Breath of the Wild originally came out, there have been 2 new models of Switch for people to upgrade to. And we use the term upgrade advisedly. Not only that, but 5 billion years is a long time. Who's to say that your original Switch even survived that length of geological time? I mean, seriously. And in a world where cloud saves don't work quite as seamlessly on Nintendo Online as they do on other platforms, it's fair to say that a good number of people might not have their original Breath of the Wild saves on the Switch they're playing Tears of the Kingdom on. All that to say, it is worth sorting out if you can, because Tears will let you carry over your horses from the previous game, saving you the bother of having to capture and break in a new one. And honestly, if you already have a favourite steed, why start again? Look, we've all done it. You get carried away messing around above a Skyview Tower and then all of a sudden, you run out of stamina. Maybe you could try and steer towards that lake you saw 5 minutes ago, but really, there's nothing you can do except wait for the splat, right? Wrong. Simply fast travel to anywhere from midair. It works. It's just like on Star Trek, except it's actually cool. I'm joking, do not come for me, Trekkies. Another way to avoid damage from a long drop, although this is more for showing off than anything else, is to be clinging onto an object like a log while you do it. This way, all of the fall damage is absorbed by the log, and Link gets to go merrily on his way after touching down. Useful for making a quick descent without using any stamina. Okay, our last tip is really obvious, but we're serious. The most important thing to understand about Tears of the Kingdom is that it isn't Breath of the Wild. It might have a familiar map, the same controls in combat, many of the same characters, and even the exact same look and feel. But that is deceptive, because it is a very different beast. Link's new powers fundamentally change the way everything works, and open every challenge to being solved by means that even the game's developers might not have considered. To borrow a phrase from another little green man with pointy ears, you must unlearn what you've learned. Embrace the chaotic tools at your disposal, and remember, there is no right solution, only one that works. If you enjoyed those tips, please do check out some of our other Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom videos on the channel right now. And subscribe for more, because we have got loads more videos incoming too, just as helpful or chaotic as this one. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in Hyrule. Bye!